Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an attendee in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest in the BCS Future Elite series of talks by great leaders in the field of IT. We have Shemek Koska and Rachel Skelton lined up ready to give you their stories and plenty of advice. And they will be keen to answer your questions at the end. So please use the question function on your GoToWebinar control panel to register questions as the talks progress and as they occur to you. And we will deal with as many as we have time for at the end of the event before we close it at 7 o'clock. We would usually be in a room at Banyan with a beer in our hands. You're probably, it has to be said, in a more comfortable chair right now than you would be there, but I do hope nevertheless that you've got a drink in your hand. I'll hand over now, please. We're going to take the to speakers in reverse order compared with the information you've seen. So Rachel Skelton, thank you very much.
Hello, awesome. I think you can see my screen now, which is, I'm just going to go with we can. Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Skelton. Thank you so much for attending this e-event. This is very exciting. I'm super excited and also really giddy, so sorry about that. Right, so my talk today is going to be about my journey, and it's called From Let Go to Leadership. The beginning of my journey, because I am still very much at the beginning of my journey. First question, which is rhetorical. Do we have anyone here who would class themselves as impatient? Because I'd class myself as impatient, or I would maybe in college. That's right, I'm passionate, driven, eager. Sorry, I had to go there. And I wanted to be, oh, you know what? Do you want me to introduce myself first? I'll do that. So a bit about me. So I'm a bit of a surfer, and yes, in Yorkshire, when it's winter and the waves are like huge. I am a bit of a plant mum, and I'm sorry I said mum like that. It's just that it's more aesthetically pleasing, and a musician and a random creative as well. So I am creative at work, and I'm also creative outside of work. I work for Conveyor Insurance in the technical department called Conveyor Digital, and that's where I currently work. And I also co-host Leeds Front End, and I'm a junior software engineer, and I've been in tech for about 9 years if you include like learning, college and university. So I'm going to go back to my question of anyone who classes themselves as impatient. So I wanted to be an amazing developer, drive a fancy car, and also have a sweet paycheck, all by the age of 24. So keep 24 in your head. I'm going to talk about my journey, and we're going to see whether I achieved these goals or not. So let me give you some background. I'll start with high school. And I know it's secondary school because we're in England, not America. So high school wasn't great for me. I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't really get along with everybody. I was bullied a bit, and I wasn't an A grade student, so I didn't want to stay at sixth form. So that took me on to college. Now you might be wondering why I've got like an older person with an iPad here. It's because I had no idea what I wanted to do at college. And I knew that my relatives were in tech. So my uncle, my granddad, my grandma, they all worked in some form of tech, but I had absolutely no idea. So remember I told you a bit about me being a musician? Well, I tried to build a HTML site at the age of like 15, I think it was. It was before college. And I had no idea what I was doing. I remember my granddad tried to explain SEO to me, and it just went straight over my head. I had absolutely no idea. So I was flicking through the college guide, and I saw IT software development, and I thought, you know what, this is going to help me build my music website. I'm going to do it. I ended up loving it. I ended up getting like the second highest grades year, and it was honestly, it was great. So I was pushed to kind of go to university, willingly, that is. So I was on a pretty good high from the lows of school. Now that takes me on to university. I don't want to sound like a millennial student here, but it wasn't an easy ride. Mainly because, first year was great. I was on a high from college, it was fab. Second year, uni life set in. Third year, uni life set in hard. So I was going out partying like more than I could manage. And I entered a slump of depression. And I realized much later that I rely heavily on routine, and being a 21-year-old with not much self-discipline, and at university with no routine, that was really difficult. So I didn't handle it very well. I ended up failing my third year of university. Now I only failed one module, but it meant that I failed the year. So I had three options. I mean, how was I meant to be a top developer at 24 years old if I just failed and had all this debt and no degree? So I had, three options. The first option was I could just give up. Now those who know me know that I wouldn't do that. So that was out of the question. So my second option was I could retake the module, and I'd have to retake the whole year. But I'd be capped at 40%, which is cool. It's a pass, but it means that the rest of my modules, which were affected by my depression, meant that it wouldn't get me on a good footing overall. So what I did do was I retook the module, no cap, so I paid for the year, and I actually did really well in that module. I got first. It was security as well, cyber security. I'll never forget that. I really enjoyed it, but it was hard work. And after all this, it put me on a good footing. I ended up coming out at pretty good shape. So I came out with a 2-1. So remember all those ridiculous goals I had to be all these goals for 24. Well, I graduated at 23. Also, I'm not sure why that picture's so wide. Okay, that's weird. So why am I telling you this? Basically, you can tell that my expectations versus reality was, completely, skewed. It wasn't right. So I'm gonna tell you a bit about what happened after this. So after this, I started my first developer job. It was a small company, telecoms company. There was only 14 of us, and I was a junior developer, and I had my senior dev was the head of IT as well. So it was like a really busy role. It was great. I absolutely loved it. And I lasted there about a year. So I loved it there. And after a year, I felt like I needed to move on to the next thing. So this takes me on to my second role, which was a non-developer role. So this role was an application support and deployment engineer role, which I did love. It was mostly working with databases and deployment, but I really missed development. So what I started to do was I wanted to get back into development, but I enjoyed my role. So I stayed at that role and I got more involved with the community. So by this time, I found I had online, some friends, some people who I made friends with who were developers, and I got involved with Code First Girls, and I was a voluntary instructor at Code First Girls. Now, it didn't really coincide with my non-development role. So what I ended up doing was taking some holidays to do this stuff and really get back into dev, and I absolutely loved it, and I'd missed it. I also restarted with a friend, Leeds Front End Meetup. So I co-host that and I co-organize that. So that's so fun. We have a community of fabulous people, and we meet up once a month. We're not doing it at the moment because we don't feel we can bring the energy to an online one that we could do to a face-to-face. So that's parked until the current situation is over. And then finally, one other thing that I've been doing is working with Junior Hub. So Junior Hub is a community, Slack community, which my friends set up, and we have devs all over the country, like junior devs. It's a bit like Stack Overflow, but our tagline is like, there's no such thing as a stupid question, because I don't know who knows about Stack Overflow, but I've heard stories of people signing up with women's names because it's really brutal. So I've seen, you know, people ask questions and it's not that friendly sometimes. So Junior Hub was started, and with Junior Hub we've put on loads of free events alongside, you know, like North Coders and things like that. So that's been really fun. So I wanted to get back into coding, and I wanted to do it as a role. And what I did was I jumped into the first development role I could, because I've started to realize, you know, I missed it as a full-time role. I want to be a developer, and it was a mistake. I'm going to share some tips with you, what I learned about the whole process. So number one, remember that you're interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. So I've now been on both sides of an interview, as an interviewer and an interviewee, and it's often forgotten, even with myself. I go in there, if I'm going for an interview, you know, I want them to like me, I want to be technical enough, I want to make sure everything's perfect, I'm, you know, worried about, you know, tech tests, things like that. All these things are going on in your head, and you just need to remember that you need to make sure they're a good fit for you as well as the other way around. So that's really important, and I think it's often forgotten. The second one is, if your gut is telling you no, listen to it. So I didn't do this in my interview to go back into dev. I really didn't, and I should have listened to it because it was screaming out. The red flags were there, but I didn't listen to it. Now, this interview tip, this tip in general, can be applied for everything. You know what I mean? You can really apply it for everything. So this is just like the best, I think. Third tip: the company messes you around in the beginning with no explanation, run. So there's loads of different things to this. You know, if they want to hire you, but then they're going to wait a bit, or if nothing's prepared. Some people's notice periods can be quite long. They can be from like a week, 2 weeks to 3 months. That company is not getting in touch with you during that time. You know, that's where you're going to be spending most of your time when you start that new role. If they're telling you, oh yeah, you're going to be doing this, but you have to do this first, but not yet, kind of thing. These are just back and forth, the red flags. You need to make sure you understand what you're doing, you know, what your role is. So you might be wondering why I'm talking about these interview tips. So I lasted 2 months at this company that I got called into the office after my pre-booked holiday, after I came back, and they said, we're just not working out. So firstly, I thought it was a joke. Secondly, it was not a joke. Thirdly, I should have listened to my gut. Why didn't I listen to my gut? So why didn't it work out with this role? Well, my new dev job was getting back into dev, and I'd rushed into it and not listened to my own tips. So I was, I wanted to do this, and they said we could do this, but first you have to do a different role. Things just weren't aligned, and both of our values just weren't aligned. So that takes me on to my final interview tip. A developer's role can differ between companies. Get them to tell you exactly what the role looks like, and if there are any other developers in the company, speak to them. It's okay having a chat with the manager or the in-house recruiter, but they don't do the role that you're going to go into. So have a chat with them. My key thing to take away is always ask if you can go in for a few hours and just sit with other developers, if there is any in the company, because it's really important. So you might be thinking, well, you're probably not thinking, I was thinking, what on earth am I going to do now I've been let go from a role that I wanted, because I wanted to be a dev again? And how it felt to be let go from a junior role, it was kind of tough. I'd gone to college, I'd gone to university, I'd got a degree, and now I've gone in as entry level, and you're not good enough. That's tough. And that's how it felt. Felt like a punch in the face. So what did I do? I took a week to decide what I really wanted to do. That was long enough for me. I made my mind up. I'd been brought down to earth. I'd really had a good think about it, and I was in a really good place to think about it. I updated my CV a little. Didn't need much updating. I'd only been there 2 months. And I spoke with a few people in my network, so other managers from different companies, you know, who were in my network, and they're like, what do you want to do? And I decided that I wanted to do JavaScript. I wanted to be a developer still. I wanted to work with people because that was my strength. So after this, I approached one of our sponsors at Leeds Front End, who was a fantastic sponsor, and she's a recruiter, and she goes, look, I know this fantastic company, and I'm telling you this because I know you, not because I want to score a recruitment point. And I thought, right, last time I jumped straight away, so I'm going to have minimum, you know, like 2 interviews, and then yeah, we'll see how we go. But the first interview I had, the one where Sandra was like, go for this, my gut instinct was just like screaming, this is awesome, gotta do it. But I was like, you gotta have that second interview with somewhere else, just because it burnt you last time. So using those tips before, I had learned exactly what I wanted from a company, and the biggest thing for me was vision. So I knew being a developer or engineer could be a role of coding, but what was the business doing, and more importantly, how did it treat the people through vision? I'm a huge people person, so I was asking the questions, why should I work here? Well, I fit in here. Does this role fit me? And what does my gut say? So that takes me on to Conveyor Insurance. So I had an interview with Conveyor Insurance, absolutely loved it. And we are called Conveyor Digital because we are the digital side of Conveyor Insurance. I just want to quickly tell you a little bit about who Conveyor are. So Conveyor are a huge insurer over in France, originally in France, insure about 1 in 4 people, and then they came to the UK and they bought up a couple of insurers around the country, the small ones, and we insure for some of the biggest household names, which is fab, and they also go by the name Provident Insurance as well. So when I joined Conveyor, the tech department had just come out of the other side of a digital transformation, and this was an amazing opportunity to grow with the business, especially as Conveyor has like a great learning and development team. So my first career tip for you is get a mentor. This is super important. I didn't realize how important this was until I got a mentor. You can find them online, reach out on your network, there's Twitter, LinkedIn, just don't pay for a service, you don't need to do that. Having a mentor is a great way to establish and achieve your career goals and identify gaps in your own knowledge. Your mentor has a wealth of knowledge and expertise and experience, which can help guide your own decisions. So when I started, I had a mentor and he said, what is it you want to do? Now, people who recognize this, recognizes it's a SWOT analysis. So what are your strengths, what are your threats, what are your weaknesses, opportunities? I did this and I highly recommend you do a SWOT analysis. Read upon it if you don't know what it is. It really identifies different things that maybe you didn't even know about yourself, or just brings them to the surface. So I said, look, I want to work with people. I want to be manager, I want to lead. And I was really fortunate that an opportunity eventually came up where a team of 4 apprentices and interns needed a manager because their manager had moved on to a bigger squad, which was really cool. So just a bit about this because they are fantastic. This is one of the first things that we did. We went into a high school and we worked with the whole of year 7. And we put them into groups of 5, so they had like 2 developers, designers, Scrum masters, product owner, tester, and then we did these cool robots. So I'm just going to touch on that because I'm going to move on to the next thing because it's super important about your career. Second of advice would be get a coach. Now, I want to briefly mention the difference between a coach and a mentor. If you don't know, a mentor gives you advice and draws on experiences they've had, whereas a coach probes and asks the questions so the answers come from you. That's the difference between a coach and a mentor. So both are really important to have. So one of my goals with my coach and my mentor was I become a manager, but I have no management experience. So how would I move forward? So that takes me to where we are now. So a group of businesses within Calderdale came together in different sectors and created a course called Aspiring Leaders course. And this suited aspiring leaders with responsibility but little to no experience. I jumped at this opportunity. This was fantastic. It aligned perfectly to the goals that I wanted with the business and the goals, the personal goals. So what does this mean? It means that not only will I become equipped with the knowledge to lead and give back to Conveyor, I actually come out with a qualification too, which is fab. So this course is 18 months, and I think I've got about 14 months left. So it's only new for me, but these are some of the things that I will be learning. This graph isn't to scale either. I will be learning a lot more than this as well, but these are just some of the things that I wanted to share. And it really just helps grow and become a better leader, and enables me to give back as well. So yeah, that is my whirlwind tour of my journey, and I'm sorry I spoke so quickly. I realized that actually I am a bit of a rambler. So thank you so much for listening to my talk. If you've got any questions, as John said, please pop them in the box, and we'll deal with them at the end. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's TechieRay, and also hashtag Conveyor Digital as well. I always hashtag Conveyor Digital on LinkedIn and stuff. So thank you so much for listening to my talk. I have no idea what's going on now.
John, you're on mute.
There's always a technical problem, isn't there? Thank you very much, Rachel, for that. I'm very grateful to you. I'm going to hand over to Shemek, and then we're already getting some questions in for after Shemek's presentation.
Fab.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Przemek Kotka. I'm currently a director of technology at the company called Diversity Travel. We specialize in travel services for academic and charity sector. So let's be honest, not your typical holiday destinations. I'll start straight away with a few words kind of about myself and where I'm coming from. I'm originally from Poland. Started my own business at around 18, selling board games, card games, built an e-commerce platform called GameStation.pl. We're lucky to get the domain at the time. And going through university, someone offered me a role in London as an IT support. So, I took it as a chance to go and see the world a bit, managed the business for a few years remotely, and then sold it. And then my career progressed through support roles, system administration, elements of databases, assistant head of IT, to the head of IT at Diversity. And then I was fortunate enough to be offered the position at the board as a director of technology. I think I've kind of touched on all the areas of IT that you potentially can. I'm not a specialist. I'm a very much a generalist, but I can talk to people about databases, product, compliance, security, networking, and all the other bits. And this talk, it started as kind of, it's not 9 to 5. I don't know who the audience is. I can't see your names, and I don't know what is your background. But my thing is that with everything, IT is not easy, and there's a lot of hours that you will have to put in to achieve what you like to, achieve. Just going very quickly to the next slide. So I'll probably complement what Rachel said, and here are my tips in terms of the interview, or what I've kind of observed. In the last 5 years, I had to build a team from 3 people to around 32 across different IT areas, and sitting at probably at least 100 interviews for various roles, from a junior support people to a head of IT, head of software development, and also supporting the business with other kind of director level roles, interviews, and things like that. Here are some tips from me and my observations that might be useful for you if you are prepared to go down the IT route. I think the first one is to have a goal, and I think Rachel pointed that out rightly so. You need to know what you want, be that in the next year, next month, 3 years, 5 years. At least have something to work towards. If you go to an interview and you have a conversation, and you're a specialist, you want to be the developer, you want to be an infrastructure person, you want to be a manager. If you cannot define what you need, how can you actually set the agenda for the team later? It doesn't have to be a grand goal, and be honest about if you're doing or looking for a job just for the money. Be open about it. unless it's your business, we all go for work for the money. If it's for fun and you clearly need to be in a fun environment and you need to be fully fulfilled, but what you do, that's a good reason. And then, as Rachel said, just be picky and make sure that the organization you sign up with is going to help you achieve your goal. Kind of the other bit is, in general, in IT, my observation, we, coming from technology background, we tend to hide behind, oh, we are techies, we can skip the comms piece, or we can skip the presentation because, the proof is in the pudding, it works perfectly, that's kind of what we do. That's not the case. My ex-manager, my kind of mentor for a few years, we had a lot of debates about that, and let's be honest, 50% of your work is how you're going to present it. It's nothing about your knowledge of the code. It's nothing about how you've built it, how funky the APIs, tools, the newest cutting edge tech you've put into your work. It all won't matter unless you present it in the right way. And this starts with the interview process, and then, in the first months in the job, and then later on, it's the same. You might be a fantastic seller and you might sell your work fantastic, great, but if you've not done it right, well, that 50%, someone will cut you that are just winging it. On the other hand, if you're just 50% and you're not putting your hand up and say, hey, I've done it and it's presented well, you won't get the correct recognition. So just make sure that you don't always think that, selling to your business, to your organization, to your customers, selling the logic doesn't always work. You have to sell the emotions, and you also have to sell the, dress your bits correctly. It will work out much better for you. And again, a very techie bit observation, all the emails and the one-worded messages saying, can you call me? Again, if you want to progress in your career, your manager quite often won't have time to listen. Can you call me? What is it about? Explain. If you took time to open Outlook, whatever email client you use, make sure that you communicate and you don't waste people's time as well, yours and theirs. I think that will help you. And the last bit, it's the first one. We quite often think about our jobs being very technical. It's not. Unless you work in a purely scientific part or you're very techy in the business, I don't know, you actually write APIs that you then resell. In most cases, we have internal clients that we have to deal with. We have to support them. We have to talk to them. We have to make sure the product matches their needs. And I think, a tip, if you are embarking and you want to pick a career in IT, just realistically, it is an IT, it is a customer service role as much as any other work. The other bit, and my poor choice of memes, but sorry, but make sure you learn your tools. You will save yourself a lot of time. So if you're using an IDE, an email client, a chat functionality, or whatever, make sure that you know the quirky functions. You will then, you will have to spend some time researching these, but it will also make the perception about you better. You will come across more professional. So again, if a person comes to an interview and it's a .NET developer role, let's say, and they are very much not sure about how to navigate the IDE, or they do it in a way that doesn't convey confidence, versus nothing to do with their skill, versus person that knows all the shortcuts, it makes you look way better. So, have that in mind. Again, do not overcomplicate things, and just always think, can I make something much simpler? I think quite often my new starters, the first kind of reaction is like an empire builder. I'm going to start setting my things. I'm going to expand and build better environment. I'm going to script this and script that, and so on and so on. And it becomes great, fantastic to do your job, but it's not agile in any way. Systems change, processes in the business change, people go. Make sure that whatever you build, you can hand it down and teach people to do it themselves, empower them by building the tools. And I think, that's, especially when you're starting a new role, that will get you some brownie points with your manager. Know your stuff, So a bit of an anecdote from we do technical tests without internet access, depending on whatever role you're is. And we this is the kind of the face I quite often see when you come in and say, here is your task. It will take you less than an hour. Let's say it's a .NET code. You need to write a couple of classes, inherit one from another, implement a simple interface, and make a button display a value or something like that. But the moment you tell people no internet access, it means you've not done any of your research. You basically put a lot of simple code together, which is a way to do things. But if you want to be a professional in your job, make sure that you can do basic stuff without external help. So, and the basics are critical. We're not talking here about writing, connection strings from scratch to a God knows what type of database, but the really basics. If you need support on the kind of how to start your project, how to build a class, how to inherit things, and you need to, support yourself with Stack or Google or whatever, that's bad. That probably won't get you a job. And also, basics is one thing, but then the theory and why certain things work one way or the other, especially in the business, so the client environment. Again, we're building tools for others. As a developer, we cannot always, we can rely on the product teams or a business analysts. They'll give us stories, requirements, however you call it in your place. Make sure that you actually talk to the client directly. Get up from your desk, call them, whichever way you prefer, but do actually spend time with them. If you have an opportunity and you're building a tool for a customer service team, go and sit next to them for 3 hours or a day, or actually do their job. If you have that opportunity, you will understand what are you building and what problems are you trying to solve. And also kind of a know your staff. This kind of, we have that joke that we distinguish between coders. There are people that you give them requirements, lock them in the room, they'll produce code in a working tool. They're coders. They don't work and they don't really put the solutions together for the business, for the clients. And we have some fantastic coders. There is a different way of also working. And if you want to be a full developer, you have to not only think about the code, but how things, the blocks that you build, how they fit within whatever organization or a product that you're trying to build or support. Be a team player. Let's be honest, again, fix friends' computers. We had that joke about that in preparation for this talk. It doesn't mean just friends or family. It means help people. If someone comes and says, guys, I don't know about this, don't blindly send them down the help desk route, especially if they sit a few desks away. That will expose you to other departments. If you work in a big business, it will expose you to new ideas. You will see how people work and what actual problems they have with. Let's be honest, if someone asked you to conduct, I don't know, help with a surgery, you wouldn't know. And some of the systems we build are very complex. And just being that person's kind of shoes when they encounter the problem, and don't just think, oh, another user, they've not read the manual. Well, is the manual in a readable format or is it in Klingon and only we can understand it? For internal teams, situations that we quite often have with people who started with us is, I'm a developer, I'm going to send it to the tester, or I'm a developer, I've tested happy pass scenario, I'll commit the code. Great, I didn't have any conflicts. But once you run it, first pass, it doesn't work, it breaks something in a blunt way, or maybe in a way that actually passed all your automation testing. So do always try to run your code if you can, a few times. Don't just assume someone else down the line will pick up the mistakes, because there might be none in your code, but in a way the application behaves, or the systems, be that network, there are organizations that have a 1 minute limit on screen lock, which is, is that usable? Put it on your PC and see if you like that. And then resolve conflicts, not only code-wise, but, be the person who diffuses different situations. You will have, or you might already have, a stressful conversations with your managers, stressful conversation with your peers. Have examples for an interview of these situations, because people who can help the team glue together, they're very important in an organization. And if you have that skill and you can practice it, that will help you a lot. Pick a path. I think a lot of us, when they start, I did myself kind of, oh, I need to be a CEO, or I need to be a CTO, or I want to be a manager. Believe me, it's not for everyone. If you cannot sit in the room and calmly deliver very bad news, because there will be difficult situation in your work. It's not just organizing tasks. It's not just making sure the backlog is filled and trimmed and the stories are perfect, or it's not just about the project management. Being any form of manager where you have to deal with people, it is difficult. So don't always also think that it's the most, if the money is the thing, is the most profitable bit, because there are technical paths. And on the other hand, if you have an opportunity to try, let's say you're a technical person, someone offers you to be a manager, but you're not sure, go and try it. And then if you can, come back. So again, we had a fantastic developer, senior developer, who now moved on and is one of the senior developers at KPMG. He was a great developer. He, by the fact that he had great credibility, he assumed the role of a team manager, got a good pay rise, but it didn't work. He was so focused on fixing everyone's code and making sure that the technical side works that he completely forgotten that actually being a manager is about people. So we had to move him back to being a developer on the same salary because he was really, really good. But don't always assume that you have to go into management. If you are the tinkerer type, the researcher type, pick that path early, give it a try on the other path if you can, but don't think that you always have to go to management. There are great roles, well paid, in tech, not in management. And it was the last slide, which I dropped off of this version, so apologies. It's the one where grow and develop. I said at the beginning, I think IT is not 9-to-5 job. You will do some support. You will have to fix bugs. You will have problems with your code. And first of all, that's a learning opportunity. Look at it this way. But also, if you think that, there are organizations that it may work, but if you're working in a small team or a medium-sized team, you will have weekends, you will have holidays that you have to work on. And if you're serious about being a professional in IT, you will have to put in the hours, and hopefully the organization you work for recognizes you for that, be that in the salary, time, and you on the other bits. But I think you have to have that mindset. I think being a bit of an altruist in IT is very important if you want to be really successful. So yeah, that's kind of my observations from different interviews. The people who work with me now, some of them 4 or 5 years in our organization, who started as a junior and are now infrastructure team managers, and run the team and run equipment's worth of hundreds of thousands of pounds and things like that. So yeah, any questions, fill in the box and I'll happily answer.
Thank you very much for that, Przemek. That was brilliant and very useful indeed. We've got some great questions as well. One for you, first of all, PK, if that's okay.
Yeah.
You said in your talk that people who are really important who glue the team together, and if you get the chance to practice that, that's good. Have you got any suggestions as to how you can practice gluing the team together?
First of all, yeah, so be the person that gets involved, and don't just randomly budge in and try to fix problems where people don't ask for help, but be the one to help. That's the first thing. But also, again, talk to people, even talk to people you don't like. That's quite often, you will work with a variety of individuals in your roles, and quite often people may not fit, your style. You may not like them. You may not want to be next to them, but unfortunately, if you like the organization, you like your job, you will have to figure out the way. And I think the only way to do it is to be a proactive and start with these people. Pick someone you don't like for whatever reason and see if you can resolve that conflict and make them someone, maybe not someone who, or you don't have to like them, but at least you can work together as a team Let's be honest. And I keep telling to my guys, I'm not at work, I'm not their friend. I'm not here to make everyone happy. I'm here to make sure that the things for the business are delivered, and I'm here to support them and grow them. You know, drinks outside, that's a different story, but they also have to, you know, work on that and make sure that they build that environment. And yeah, pick someone who you don't like, see if you can make a connection and fix that thing.
Thank you. Rachel, does that resonate for you?
Yeah, I guess so. I haven't had much experience in that, so I'm learning from Chevik as well. So no, that's really good. Yeah, I like that.
Well, Rachel, you talked about it being super important to get a mentor. Have you considered mentoring others yet?
Kind of class myself as kind of mentoring the people I manage, because like they're apprentices, you know, they started the journey, they're early in their careers, they've got things to learn, and I can teach them some things that I've learned. So I set them work when they're not doing the degree, which align to Conveyor's values, business values, and you know, the basics. So I feel like I mentor those people in the way I can. Yeah.
Good, thank you. There's a really interesting one here for you, Rachel. Was it the expectation of success, the drive to succeed, or was it the perception of success that drove you to desire the job, the car, the life? Or do you think that the expectation of success leads to too much pressure, perhaps, in younger people's career choices?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on young people for career choices. That's quite a chunky question. So yeah, there's a lot of factors I think that go into that. I think the pressure is huge on younger people from all sorts of sources. You know, when I was at college, I was, you know, go to university from college, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was like, yeah, fine, I'll go to university. And a lot of people do go to university just because of that reason, and don't really know what, you know, what they're kind of getting into. I feel like I've been very fortunate the way that, you know, my journeys happened. Have I answered that fully? I think I might have missed part of that question.
Sounds like a decent answer to me. Shemek, can you add anything to that?
I went to university because at that time, pressure in Poland was basically, university was more like a high school. So if you don't do it, you will end up with a very poor job. But I've not finished my first university. I've moved to London and then transferred my papers, and I had to actually fly back for 6 months to Poland to finish my degree somewhere. And then I did masters here in Manchester. If you have a chance, yes. But on the other hand, if you are already a specialist and you see yourself, right, you have an opportunity to do some experience just after college straight away, go and do it. It sometimes might be the right way and will get you some experience. And quite often with that experience, you might actually have already a good job and do a part-time university. So it really is, you know, it really depends on your circumstances. My thing is, if you don't feel like it, fine, do the job. You can learn a lot on Stack, on Google, on YouTube, in coding, or in IT in general. And if you're good and you like it, do it that way. Again, a lot of my guys in my team, you know, out of 32 people that I look after, only a handful actually have a degree. So it's not a must. Don't feel pressured. But then, you know, if at some point, if you want to be really, really good and you want to have a high, you know, get the dream job, you might end up in a situation that will compare a mirror of you. It will be a copy of you, and that person will have a degree and you want, and that's the only reason you might not get your dream job. So have that in mind. Again, don't go into lightly. It costs a lot of money. And, you know, if you want to pay for it, enjoy it and do it. Don't just pay for it to try.
Yeah, just building on that, I know so many people, fantastic developers who haven't gone to university, and, you know, so there's boot camps, there's so many alternatives. If you know you want to be a developer, go and learn to be a developer. Don't go to university. Like, I'm not saying definitely don't go. If you don't want to go, I don't think, you know what I mean? I think the pressure's lifting a lot now. I think employees aren't looking for degree candidates, you know what I mean? It's definitely lifting. Self-teaching is coming up, and I think it's fantastic. Definitely support it. I do question whether I would have done that again a lot, but I think it taught me a lot. So I'm happy with my journey, but it's definitely not a must to go to university.
It's interesting that you've both made reference to Stack Overflow. Rachel, have you found others who have appreciated the, how might you say, slightly safer perhaps, environment that you've created at Leeds Front End?
How about what, sorry?
I found others that who've appreciated the fun and safe environment that you've created there.
Yeah, definitely. There's loads of, I feel like Stack Overflow is the hub of information, but I do think it's kind of outdated in a way of mindset. So honestly, community is like the biggest thing for me. People are the biggest thing for me. And when it comes to tech community is huge because, there's so many open source, there's so much help out there. So I think having that friendly face-to-face is just something different to being on screen. And that's why we love doing our community things, because we come together and it's not, after work, you've been staring at a screen all day. You can come and, face-to-face and do it together instead of just being on a screen. So yeah, there's loads of people who, love that face-to-face community spirit.
There's an interesting response to Stack Overflow's 2019 developer survey being posted in the question box by somebody who very much appreciated the frankness and honesty of your talk, Rachel. It says, apparently, men are more likely to say that being tasked with non-development work is a problem for them, while so-called gender minority respondents, presumably women, are more likely to say that toxic work environments are a problem. So the question is, do you think that maximizing transparency early on in the recruitment process would help address these problems?
Oh, I think transparency from the get-go is very important. I've also heard surveys where women do, and gender minorities do say that, the toxic work environment is a huge thing. I think I'm really fortunate to work at a company where it's, diversity, inclusiveness is celebrated massively. I feel like it's something that's still being worked on at a lot of places. I can definitely see, where that's coming from.
Yeah. Shemek, anything you want to add to that question?
I mean, but I don't know. So let's be honest. One kind of note, like if you're a developer, always think like, has Google, Microsoft, or someone else not done it before? And if they did, you probably can find it on GitHub or Stack. So always look there. I probably in my career maybe posted 3 questions because most of the answers are there. They are obscure and they might be outdated, and you might have to tweak them a bit to make them work. I get that. I'm not exactly sure about the kind of a toxic environment or non kind of technical tasks. Again, I think one bit I'm trying to drill into my teams is you're working with other people. The fact that you use tools which are technical, that that should not matter. You still have to deal with them in the most polite, inclusive, empathetic way, because we all have to get on with the work that we have to do. And it will, if we're not doing that, we will create a toxic environment. And it doesn't mean that you always have to agree, but we can disagree and behave in a way that doesn't intoxicate kind of the environment for the others.
Thank you. There's a lovely comment from one of our attendees, Rachel, who says, not a question, but something I was told years ago that echoes what Rachel said, which resonates with me. He was told years ago, become a better engineer by becoming a better mentor.
Nice. I need to write this down.
It's a nice quote. Shemek, you said that that it's very important to keep your own goals in view.
Yeah.
And have you ever experienced a divergence of goals between yourself and your business, the business you work for, and how did you address it?
Yes. So again, we, from technical background, at the position where I am, it's very much you quite often think this is the best technical solution, but it won't work for the business because it's expensive. We might not have a skill. It's just integration down the line. There's so many challenges, but we know this is a Ferrari in what we want, and we would like to get that. So that's a common bit. And we have to be realistic. In the end, again, my goals are different, but in the end, I signed up the contract. My role is to support the business, and it won't be fair in any way if I said, well, I actually agreed to support the business in what the business decision is. And yes, sometimes you have to basically say, right, I don't like it, but I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities. And as long as it's not immoral or completely against your conscience and your beliefs, go home, have a drink, wake up next day and back to work, do it again. Talk to your manager, talk to your mentor if you have one, talk about the problems. And there's one phrase that my manager said, never present your manager with a problem, always with a solution. So if you don't like something, come back next day and say, can we try something different, and present that solution? Because let's be honest, I'm again laughing about that. I employ people for them to do the work for me, not to create problems for me. So I want to help them resolve them. But if they bring more problems to my plate every day, that's, something is not right. That has to be changed. So always think on that side. But yeah, that's kind of from me. I'm not going. You would have to go into a particular goals or something like that, but it's a normal occurrence. We make difficult decisions. We need to let people go sometimes, performance or some other issues, and sometimes it's a reduction in staff, or we had to get rid of a department or something like that. And I might not like it. I'm aware that someone is going to be in a position that Rachel was to search for a new job. Some of them look after the families and things like that. But that's what I sign up for, and there are certain rules. And on the other side, like Rachel said, if you don't like the organization and things are fishy, go find another place. There's plenty of places, especially up north, that you can find the right place for you. But on the other hand, when you sign the contract, you give someone your word and stick to it.
Does that resonate with you, Rachel?
Yeah, just it's about the balance. And if the business wants to do something that you think's wrong, then why? Question why you think like that. Is there a better solution you can have? Or is it, something it's out your control, but you've made the business well aware of your not issues, but like reservations about things. So it's about getting that balance. But completely, echoing what Chemik says.
Thank you for that. There's just one final question. So if anybody in the audience has any more questions, please ask them now. But Chemik, again, it's for you. You made a fairly major point about the value of good communication. And the question is, what experience was it that led to you emphasizing that communication point?
My ex-manager, when I first came to the UK, I'm Eastern European, and I can be really blunt and direct to a very uncomfortable degree. So first of all, he was correcting my English in every meeting, in every email. That was driving me crazy, but that's the basic form of communication, first of all. But the second bit, majority of my reviews were fantastic in terms of the technical and delivery, but I got a minus points in terms of how I dealt with things. Going back about the presentation and how you deliver stuff. So I've constantly been, I'm not saying penalized, but pointed out on every single step of my career that the comms is important. And when I got to the position I am at, I suddenly have to, I'm not saying there is no politics, but you need to get people to do things for you, for the business, and you don't want to use the stick all the time. You have to use the carrot, and sometimes you don't. They're your peers, there are people from another department. There might be different managers coming into and trying to manage my people. You have to do it in a polite way, and the only way to do it and do it effectively without creating a toxic environment is to learn how to communicate with others. It is also I've spent a lot of time, and I do that as well today on the help desk. I spend half a day at least every week to look through the tickets, because that gives me information what happens on the front line. So also, how do you respond? You might not be able to resolve a bug or a problem or a network issue, but sometimes people just need someone to pat them on the back and say, hey, it'll be okay, we're looking after it, don't worry, we'll talk to your manager, tell them that you have to make a brew for the whole team because we're making a fix for you in the next half an hour. And that makes such a massive difference to your clients, basically, to your users, to your friends and colleagues at work.
Rachel, can you add to that?
Just that, yeah, communication is key. There's a myth about developers sat in a dark room in a corner on their own of an office or wherever. It's very rare that you work on your own as a developer. You know, you've got to speak to other developers, you've got to speak to, you know, your product owners, you've got to speak to all sorts of people. You know, you've got to communicate because you're working together as a team. That's what it is. And yeah, it's really important. So get them communication skills down. Definitely.
Well, it's interesting that that you say what you've just said. The final question that we've received is very straightforwardly asking, what's the best way to learn a new technical skill? Can you address that?
Pick a problem and try to do it the way you've never done it before. So that's, you know, again, so there was that thing that our business couldn't. We had a quote for a software which was developed for us to do one particular function, and there was a quote for over 10 grand to rewrite and add a small piece of functionality. And at that time, we didn't even have a development team. It was around 7-8 years ago, and the approach was, well, it's 10 grand. I will get someone assigned for that for a month. Someone who did coding before, they wanted to try it, and I'll just allocate them. It's going to cost the business less than 10 grand. And they've learned, well, they picked VB.NET, but for whatever reason, they rewrote actually the whole application in a month. And the business, not only that was also the kick, right, let's actually start our own development function. But that person started, you know, .NET first of all, VB, then C#, and then, you know, expanded more. So yeah, pick a problem and try to resolve it a new way.
Rachel, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that's great. Actually, that's a great answer. I also think just jump into something. You know, if you know what you want to learn, go make something, go create something, and you know, watch a few tutorials, speak to people who work in that field, that area, and then build something and just do it. And then all the problems that you encounter, when you're fixing them, that's how you'll learn. So, you know, failing is learning.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes.
But again,
yes.
Different people in different ways. That you might be an individual who prefers online tutorial, you know, plural site, Udemy, YouTube, or whatever. You know, if you're someone who prefers the classroom or face-to-face, talk to someone you know. But again, my preference is, you know, find the challenge and pick a different way to overcome it.
That's great advice. Thank you very much, both. We're starting to run out of time, but thank you very much indeed, Rachel and Shemek, for very interesting accounts of your work and your careers, and also some great advice. If anybody has any further questions, please just drop us an email and we'll forward them and see if Shemek and Rachel have got time to give a bit more advice as well. Please also send in any feedback about this session, because it's very important that we learn in order to make the next ones better. And look out for the next in the BCS Future Elite series. Thank you very much indeed, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I can work it out to turn this off, I'll do so. Thank you, guys.